Did you know there's a country in South America where an American can walk out of a government office holding a second passport after just 2 years of living there, and the total government fee is less than $300? Or that one of the fastest citizenship programs on the planet requires no language test, no job, and no permanent address check, just a wire transfer and 6 months of waiting? How about the fact that a growing number of Americans in their 40s, 50s, and 60s are quietly picking up second passports, not to escape the United States, but simply to have the legal option to go somewhere else if they ever need to? Well, getting a second passport isn't just for the ultra-wealthy or the terminally restless. The programs we're going to walk through today are legal, well-established, and genuinely accessible to ordinary Americans. Some cost a few $100s in government fees. One costs $400,000. But every single one can hand you a second passport in under 3 years, and 2 of them can do it in 2. So here are 5 countries where an American can get a second passport in under 3 years, and the one at the very top of this list does something none of the others can match. First on the list is Ecuador, a small Andean nation that most Americans associate with the Galapagos Islands, not with passports. But Ecuador quietly runs one of the most straightforward naturalization programs in the entire Western Hemisphere, and it deserves far more attention than it typically gets. Here is how it works. Ecuador offers permanent residency to foreigners who can demonstrate a passive income of about $500 a month. That is the threshold for the rentista visa, and it is remarkably low by any international standard. Social Security alone often clears it. Once you have permanent residency, the citizenship clock starts. After 3 consecutive years of living in Ecuador as a permanent resident, you can apply for naturalization. During those 3 years, you are allowed to spend up to 180 days outside the country each year. That is roughly 6 months abroad per year, while still counting every day toward your citizenship clock. For Americans who want to keep one foot in the States during the transition, that flexibility matters more than people realize. Now, there is one real hurdle. Ecuador requires applicants to pass a written test on Ecuadorian history, geography, and civic life, and it is a serious exam. You need to score at least 90%, which means getting 18 out of 20 questions right. The test is conducted in Spanish, so if you are not already conversational, you will need to get there before you apply. Most expats who have gone through the process say 6 months of focused study is enough to prepare, and there are tutors and prep materials specifically built around the exam. There is also a meaningful exception. If you are 65 or older, you skip the test entirely and receive a 50% discount on the government fees, and those fees are genuinely striking. The government charges $50 to file the application and $350 when your citizenship is approved, $400 total. That is the entire official cost of becoming Ecuadorian. Combined with a low cost of living, a comfortable retirement in Cuenca, one of Ecuador's most popular expat cities, and one that regularly tops international retirement rankings, runs about $1,500 to $1,800 a month. This is one of the most affordable paths to a second passport anywhere on Earth. Ecuador explicitly permits dual citizenship under Article 8 of its constitution, so your American passport stays with you throughout the process and after it. The payoff: 3 years of residency, a Spanish exam, and $400 in fees, and you walk out with an Ecuadorian passport. That is a remarkable return on time and money. But our next country adds something Ecuador does not offer: a tax structure that changes the math for Americans living on passive income. Moving up the list, we come to Paraguay. This landlocked country in the heart of South America doesn't appear on most people's radar, but inside the world of international tax planning and residency, it carries a serious reputation, and for good reason. Paraguay operates a pure territorial tax system. The government only taxes income earned inside Paraguay. If your income comes from the United States, a pension, Social Security, rental income from properties back home, or dividends from American investments, Paraguay does not touch it. For Americans already using the Foreign Earned Income Exclusion or the Foreign Tax Credit to manage their United States tax obligations abroad, Paraguay's territorial system layers cleanly on top of that framework. You are not eliminating your American tax bill by moving here. The United States taxes its citizens on worldwide income regardless of where they live, and nothing about a second citizenship changes that. But for the right financial picture, the combination works powerfully, and Paraguay has become a go-to destination for Americans who are serious about international tax planning without doing anything complicated. The citizenship path. Paraguay grants naturalization after 3 years of legal residency, and the minimum stay requirement is 183 days per year, just over 6 months. You do not have to be there full time, but you do have to be present for more than half of every year, 3 years running. Paraguay also requires you to demonstrate a source of income or recognize professional activity, something that shows you are genuinely participating in economic life in the country rather than just parking your residency on paper. 2 exams are required before naturalization, one in either Spanish or Guarani, Paraguay's other official language, and a separate exam on Paraguayan history and politics. Neither is considered particularly difficult, but both require preparation. Here is the math on fees. The naturalization application costs roughly $210 at current exchange rates. Additional fees for the passport and identity documents bring the total to around $340. That puts government fees under $400 for a second passport. One of the cheapest official processes on this list by a wide margin. The payoff: a territorial tax system that protects passive income, a 3-year path to a passport, and government fees that are frankly hard to believe until you see them. For Americans building international income streams or simply looking for a low-cost second citizenship, Paraguay at that price point is nearly impossible to match. The next one is where things start to get interesting, because we leave the residency-based model entirely and step into a completely different kind of program. Our next country does not ask you to live there. It does not ask you to learn the language. It does not require a civics exam or proof of social integration. Turkey simply asks you to buy real estate, and in exchange, it hands you citizenship, usually within 6 to 12 months of your purchase. Turkey's Citizenship by Investment program has been running since 2017. The minimum investment is $400,000 in Turkish real estate, and you are required to hold that property for at least 3 years before you can sell. Beyond that, the requirements are minimal. no language test, no minimum stay in Turkey, no job creation requirement, and no business plan. You purchase the qualifying property, the title deed is registered under the citizenship program, you submit your documentation, and the government processes the application. From purchase to passport typically takes between 6 and 12 months. Here is what you need to think clearly about as an American. The Turkish passport gives you visa-free or visa-on-arrival access to roughly 115 countries, including Japan, South Korea, Singapore, most of Latin America, and the Gulf states. But it does not grant visa-free access to the Schengen zone in Europe, and it does not cover the United States, Canada, or Australia. For Americans who already hold one of the world's most powerful passports, the travel benefit is not the main reason to pursue this. What attracts American investors to Turkey's program is the ability to hold a fully legal second citizenship with almost no ongoing obligations, no tax filing requirement in Turkey, no residency obligation, no annual renewals, while also owning a hard asset in a real estate market that has historically appreciated in Istanbul and other major cities. You end up with the citizenship and the property, and there is a secondary angle worth knowing. Turkey has a treaty with the United States that allows Turkish citizens to apply for the E2 investor visa, a long-term residency visa for business investors in America. Some Americans naturalize as Turkish citizens specifically to access that treaty benefit. The payoff is $400,000 in Turkish real estate, 6 to 12 months of processing, and a second passport in hand. No residency clock to serve, no language test to pass, no civics exam to prepare for. The most expensive option on this list by a wide margin, but also the fastest and least disruptive to your existing American life. Now we are getting near the top, and the final two countries are the ones most people on this list do not see coming, because both of them offer a path to citizenship in just 2 years. The first of those two is Peru, and there is a critical timing issue you need to understand right now. Peru has historically granted naturalization after just 2 years of legal residency for Americans holding a work visa, a rentista visa, or other qualifying immigration status. 2 continuous years of legal residence was enough to file a citizenship application. That made Peru one of the 2 fastest residency-based citizenship paths in all of Latin America. In August 2025, the Peruvian Congress passed a new citizenship law, Law 32,421, that will eventually extend that residency requirement from 2 years to 5. When the law takes full effect, Peru drops off this list entirely. However, the new law does not take effect until the executive branch publishes its implementing regulations. Those regulations had not been published as of early 2026, meaning applications filed under the old 2-year standard are still being accepted and processed under the original rules. Anyone who already has 2 qualifying years of residency in Peru and has not yet applied is in a real race right now. For people starting from zero today, the picture is less certain. You would need to establish Peruvian residency now and hope the implementing regulations are delayed long enough for your 2-year mark to arrive while the old rules are still active. That is not a safe assumption to build a plan around. What Peru represents here is a closing window, and for Americans already living there with residency established, the message is simple: File now, not later. Government fees under the current framework are modest, in the low hundreds of dollars. Peru fully permits dual citizenship, and the Peruvian passport gives visa-free access to the Schengen zone, much of Latin America, and several Asian countries. The payoff, if you can reach it before the window closes, is 2 years of legal residency and one of the most useful second passports in South America. Which brings us to the final country on this list, and the one that, for the right American, is the most compelling of all. Argentina has offered citizenship after 2 years of legal residency for well over a century. The baseline requirement has not changed. Live in Argentina legally for 2 years. Show a lawful source of income or economic activity, demonstrate good character, and you can apply for naturalization. After you file, processing currently runs between 6 and 18 months. Start to finish, you are looking at roughly 2.5 to 3.5 years from your first day in the country to the moment you hold an Argentine passport. But in May 2025, the Argentine government issued Decree of Necessity and Urgency 366, which changed one thing in a significant way. Under the new decree, the 2 years of qualifying residency must be completely uninterrupted. No leaving Argentina at all during the 2-year qualifying window. Any departure resets your clock to 0. That is the real tension in this path. Under the previous rules, short trips abroad were broadly tolerated. Under the current rules, they are not. This is a genuine commitment, and anyone telling you otherwise is not reading the current decree correctly. So who does this realistically work for? It works for Americans who are ready to make Argentina their actual home for 2 full years without international travel. And here is why that commitment, once made, is more manageable than it sounds. Argentina's cost of living, particularly in Buenos Aires, is remarkable by Western standards right now. A 1-bedroom apartment in a good neighborhood can run the equivalent of $400 to $500 a month. A full restaurant dinner for 2 with a bottle of Argentine wine might cost $20. For Americans receiving income in dollars, Social Security, a pension, remote work, or investment distributions, Argentina stretches further than almost anywhere else in the world. 2 years of living comfortably in Buenos Aires can cost less than 1 year of living modestly in a mid-sized American city. And the Argentine passport is genuinely worth holding. It gives you visa-free access to the entire Schengen zone, all 27 European Union member states, plus Switzerland, Norway, and Iceland, without a visa application. For Americans who already carry Schengen access on their United States passport, the travel benefit overlaps significantly day to day. But if your long-term plan ever involves living in Europe, an Argentine passport alongside your American one gives you a permanent legal pathway no visa program can revoke. Argentine citizenship is yours for life and passes to your children. Government fees for Argentine naturalization are minimal, a few dozen dollars at most. The process is now handled digitally through Argentina's National Migration Authority under the new RADEX system. There is no formal written language test for naturalization, though the application interview is conducted in Spanish and some conversational ability is expected. Argentina fully permits dual citizenship. The payoff: 2 uninterrupted years in one of the world's most culturally rich cities, government fees under $100, and a passport that opens all of Europe without a visa. For Americans willing to commit to the physical presence requirement, Argentina is the most powerful option on this list, and it is not particularly close. Here is the honest picture that connects all 5 of these countries. None of them require you to be wealthy to qualify, except Turkey, where the investment sets the floor. All 5 allow dual citizenship, so your American passport stays exactly where it is. And all 5 can deliver a second passport in under 3 years if you begin now and meet the requirements as they currently stand. What changes when you hold a second passport is not always obvious. It is rarely about travel. Your United States passport already goes most places. It is about optionality, the legal right to live and work in another country without a visa expiration looming over you, access to health care and banking infrastructure that otherwise stays closed to non-citizens. A plan that does not depend entirely on one government's decisions. None of the 5 programs on this list require you to surrender your American life to pursue them. Even the strict Argentina path lets you build something new without losing what you already have. The Americans quietly building these second citizenships understand something that does not make headlines. A second passport is not an exit. It is insurance. And as Peru is showing right now in real time, the rules change, the programs tighten, and the window does not stay open forever. The best time to start was before you needed it. For every country on this list, the second best time is now.